set with the Zoom?
Yes, and Miss Lamia is on her way
No,
now.
don't worry about her. We can
Yes,
start when she comes in.
yes, and
Okay.
then she already had the presentation.
Okay. So we can start.
Everything's good.
Okay. So we're set. So good afternoon once again, and welcome to our session. This session is entitled "The Role of Access to Information in Development." I believe when we speak about development, we are basically referring to an improvement in people's lives and in community lives. And that's what development is about. So we'll look at the issues in terms of development. The session will explore the transparency initiatives and access to information endeavors of select countries and its contribution to improving the quality of lives of its citizens. Particularly, we'll learn how access to information is used in addressing pressing development issues, to assess the impact and effects of the lack of functional and effective ATI mechanisms to the democratic institutions and citizens, and determine how citizens' engagement strengthens and improves development outcomes in states. We have some of our listeners joining in online. Good afternoon and welcome to Philippines, where we are operating on site. My name is Yao Sapong Boating. I'm the Executive Secretary of the Right to Information Commission in Ghana, West Africa, and an executive member of the African Network of Information Commissions. I'll take this opportunity to introduce my panelists here. I have Advocate Lebongang Strom. Forgive me the mentioning of the names. Member Commissioner of the Information Regulator, South Africa. Madam, can you show by hand? Yes. I have Laura Newman, a senior advisor at the Carter Center. I have Bernardo Navarrete Yanes, Commissioner Conselho para la Transparencia. I have Elizabeth Tid, Information Commissioner, Information and Privacy Commission, New South Wales. And then I'm told Lamia Zenalova will be joining us soon. She's the head of Department on Protection of Right of Access to Information, Office of the Ombudsman in Azerbaijan. She'll be joining us soon. So I'll move on to so let me introduce. Yes. Then we have Mahendra Mankurung. He's the Chief Information Commissioner, National Information Commission of Nepal. Yes, I think there's a fair representation here of women and men. Okay. All right. So welcome you all to this panel discussion. My first question should be going to Advocate Lebongang Strom. Yes. Yes. So, Madam Strom, what are the pressing development issues faced by your jurisdiction? And by your jurisdiction, I mean South Africa. And how does access to information contribute in addressing these concerns?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. I've prepared a presentation to talk about those issues in our country. If
Then you must try and do the presentation within 5 minutes.
I'll try.
Yes. So we can have more time to engage.
Yes.
Can you kindly project a presentation? Yes, so while we are waiting for the presentation, can I move on to the next panelist? Yeah. Yes, we can go to. So we are going to Bernardo Navarrete Yanes. Yes, Bernardo will be addressing us in Spanish. If you have your interpretation devices, please put them on. Bernardo Navarrete, the question to you is, what are the pressing development issues faced by your jurisdiction, and how does access to information contribute in addressing these concerns?
Bueno, buenas tardes. Antes de hablar del desarrollo, si lo miramos desde el punto de vista del Consejo para la Transparencia y todos los organismos garantes en cualquier país, es partir diciendo que las instituciones no nacen transparentes, ni los funcionarios tienen particular predisposición a entregar la información. En consecuencia, un problema para el desarrollo está en que sabemos muy poco cómo se implementan las leyes de transparencia y acceso a la información. Como dice Pressman y Bildavsky, nuestra ley es perfectamente imperfecta. Dado el escaso conocimiento que tenemos sobre la implementación y el argumento consistente de los funcionarios públicos en los 3 niveles de gobierno, central, regional y local, que es la distracción indebida. Primero, porque no nos podemos olvidar que la evidencia...
Bernardo, can you give us a moment while we fix the interpretation issues? Otherwise, all you're telling us will not be heard. So you give us a moment. Madam Strom, are you ready with your presentation? What? Yes. Can you project it? The Nepalese. Okay. So, Commissioner.
Okay.
So Mahendra Mangurung, Commissioner Mahendra Mangurung. Yes. The question you would address for us is, what are the pressing development issues faced by your jurisdiction, and how does access to information contribute in addressing these concerns?
It's okay. No. We have here. So I want presentation. Yeah.
Okay, so can we get the slides? In that case, I'll take a second question A second question from Laura. Yes. So Laura, your question. You have slides too?
I do not have slides.
Okay, that would be great. So let's begin our discussions with Laura. You fix it while we go on. So Laura, how is citizen participation being exercised and utilized in pursuit of improving the development outcomes of your state? I don't know if Qatar is a state. Yes, but I believe in the ecosystem that we operate. That's what we are referring to. Sure, thank you.
Can you all hear me without a microphone? Because that is awful. It's really hard. Could you understand everything? Okay, but they're not translating anyway. So I can do it both in English and Spanish if I need to, but they're not translating. They're not interpreting. So are you guys okay with me just speaking? Okay. The irony of me going first is that I plan for everybody else to tell you everything about access to information and development, and then I was going to talk about something else. But since I have neither slides, oh my goodness, we've got extra people. I have neither slides nor interpretation issues yet. Access to information and governance, and development, excuse me. So my name is Laura Newman. I'm a senior advisor at the Carter Center, which is a non-governmental organization headquartered in the United States. And I have been privileged to be working on the right to information at the Carter Center for almost 24 years. And previously, when I was working on this, I was focused a lot on getting a good law passed. And then I was focused on supporting you all to implement them. And then thinking through how do we get civil society. And I think it's important to recognize that the same question keeps being raised, which is, how is this supporting development? Because if it's not, if this isn't helping people to better exercise their rights, or to have greater socioeconomic advantages, to change their lives, then why are we doing it? Why are we asking governments to put money in budgets? Why are we spending the time in raising awareness if it's not really helping? So about 10 years ago, and some of you were at this conference, we held a conference in Accra. And for every man that was there, for every woman that we invited, she substituted herself with a man. And so by the time we got to this conference of about 140 people, there was just a handful of women. And at that point, we started questioning, again, if this is so important for human rights, for socioeconomic development, for voice and agency, for participation, why is there all men in the room? And we started to look at this and recognize through a study that we did that women were largely being excluded from information flows. They were not able to exercise this right, this fundamental right, the same way men were. There was a series of obstacles that we identified through a study that went through 1,700 interviews. And it was obstacles that, when you think about it, are pretty obvious, right? So women didn't have a lot of time or mobility because they were responsible both for caring for their families and their households, but also subsistence farming and economic issues. So they had a double burden, which is really a triple burden when we think about it. So there was no time, there was no mobility. They didn't have the money necessary in some cases. There was norms against them, there was fear, there was a lack of awareness. So we started in the literacy. So we started doing some programming to see how could those be overcome. And we've done that at a national level for a number of years. And about 3 years ago, we held another international conference looking at the right to information for women and how could we change this paradigm so that women could actually get information, which is so critical for development. And part of that conference mandated the Carter Center, called on the Carter Center to do some form of a global campaign around women and the right to information. I had zero idea what that meant. And so when I started really thinking about how to make this right meaningful, going back to that question of why are we doing this? Is it actually changing anybody's lives? We looked at 1,000 requests that we had helped women to make. And the vast majority of those requests were not to national government. They weren't to you all, they were to you at the subnational level. Women wanted to know, how do I get benefits? How do I get my road fixed? How do I get electricity? How do I get my child into school? Who's supposed to pay those fees? How do I get my widow's benefits? How do I get services for gender-based violence, for health care? And so we had sort of another aha moment and this epiphany that if we continued, which I've done for 20 plus years, only working at the national level, we were never going to get to that development piece that is so critical for making sure that this right is meaningful. So we began a campaign called the Inform Women, Transform Lives campaign. Many of you have heard of it. We started with 12 and have added 12 more, so we're working in 24 cities around the world, developed and developing. So it's not just, in Africa, it's actually in Atlanta and Washington, D.C., and Paris and Birmingham and Dublin, and places that really weren't reaching women with their services because of the lack of information. And what we've done is we have 24 cities representing 110 million people. We're expanding to more. And the point of this is really to make the right to information meaningful. Because if all we continue doing is talking about national budgets and national security and national policies, it's never going to be meaningful for the people that need it the most. And those are marginalized and underrepresented women, intersectionalities, etc. And just briefly, the campaign works with cities to identify underutilized municipal services, targets women, and uses information as a bridge. So to be part of the campaign, the country has to have a freedom of information law. We want to hang our hats on something. But I almost never use the words freedom of information or access to information in a legislative way. Instead, we talk about what information is really needed that you can give out that will get women to be able to use your services. And it's been amazing. So in Sao Paulo, we saw an 86% increase in women using services for gender-based violence once they did an awareness of how to access those services. In Nairobi, they went from 10 women calling their hotline for gender-based violence to 500 a month once they started letting women know. In Chicago, they had a 225% increase in women using their municipal ID card that opened the doors to all kinds of services once they became intentional about getting information to women in ways that it was meaningful. And I can go on. 200% increase in healthcare services in Guatemala. I just want to end by being slightly provocative, because many of you in this room, you all, almost all of you, are National Information Commissioners. Raise your hand if you're a National Information Commissioner. How many of you support your local governments? How many of you spend time really going to those places where your residents, your citizens, are most in need of information? And so what I'd like to do at this ICIC is challenge National Information Commissioners, whether you have it legislatively mandated or, frankly, morally mandated. We need to get to a place where we're supporting those governments that have the information that our citizens need. And that's when we're really going to get to this development question. So I have a sheet of what you all as commissioners can do with a few ideas. I'll end there. I'm so sorry that I went first, because I was, again, supposed to follow all these other great things about development. But I really will look forward to seeing how you can take on some of those issues that, again, really do get to your underrepresented and most marginalized citizens. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Laura. I think that was excellent. Where I'm coming from, there's a statement by one scholar of blessed memory, Dr. Kweje Agri. He says, if you educate a man, you educate one person. But if you educate a woman, you educate the whole nation. So I think it fits into this concept of helping to empower our women. And I believe they have the responsibility of also training our young ones who are also marginalized in societies, and we'll get the best out of them. Thank you very much. On that note, I'll refer to Ted, who will dovetail into what Laura has been going on with. Yes, Ted. So in the same spirit, how the citizen participation in the right of access to information, right? How does it help develop societies and nations that we all form part of?
Thank you. And thank you very much for that earlier statement. I'm not sure that the mic is working, but if I could turn to my slide pack to assist. I'm going next because of the fact that I'm a sub-jurisdictional Information Commissioner, Elizabeth Tidd from Sydney, New South Wales, Australia, and I have 4 case studies that come from a very privileged position of a developed democracy and an economically sustainable country right now, notwithstanding our high levels of inflation. But it is a privileged position, so these 4 case studies still demonstrate, in my view, the importance of the right to access information and its challenges in a digital society. So the 4 case studies really look at how using technology has actually alienated particularly the vulnerable. My first case study, as you can see here, is a person who was asking about an algorithm. The next slide, and her name's Ms. O'Brien. If you could remember Ms. O'Brien, she'll come up next. If I could have the next slide now. This next slide goes to the issue of acquiring information from police. And that matter is the Redfern Legal Centre matter. And the next slide now will be healthcare data in COVID, and that case is the matter of OI. And then the final case is actually about floodplains and measuring floodplains, and that case is the matter of Ireland. If I could go to the next slide, it will start with Ms. O'Brien. Ms. O'Brien was a social housing tenant, and she applied to understand how her rental subsidy was calculated. The government agency had outsourced that calculation to a not-for-profit provider, had outsourced, to a commercial firm to develop a small-scale software solution algorithm to regularly calculate, excuse me, we're having a few interruptions in this panel, that being the least of them, I hope. Then there was a third party involved in the provision of housing. Ms. O'Brien just wanted to sit down with someone and work out how her rent was calculated. She was not able to do that. She applied for information. She was refused. It went to the tribunal. She was refused again because that contract was outsourced to a third-party provider who claimed intellectual property rights over that algorithm. So she never actually found out how her rent was being calculated. So the next slide, if we turn to that, is another example. This is Redfern Legal Centre and the Commissioner of Police. I have to start this case example by saying 3 years earlier, the same applicant actually received the information. 3 years later, they did not. They applied because of strip searches that are undertaken at music festivals and that were being undertaken regularly in New South Wales for a period of time. So young people were being strip searched for possession of drugs. And they applied to say how many strip searches in this period of time resulted in this number of offences being found to have committed. The police said they were unable to combine the data from 3 different data containers, and that would require them an unreasonable and substantial diversion of resources. So too would the notion of creating a new record, because it wasn't in existence. Police and Attorney Generals work on that data to calibrate the approach to criminal justice in New South Wales. So it is available, but this information was denied. Now the next slide should talk about the next case that followed that decision. I intervened following that decision and established another approach from the tribunal, but this latest case has reinforced the tribunal's view in Redfern that actually says if you have to bring this data together, if you have to create it, it's not government information because the legislation doesn't require you to create information. My argument is that an electronic record is still a record, notwithstanding how it's held or how it's pulled together. And in this, the applicant asked for patient data to generate a report. The background to that was it was an aggregated system bringing all the states in Australia together to produce a national report. So the argument in this case against providing access to information is that no one holds that information, not even the Commonwealth, because it deletes the information after it's produced in a report. So it is the most extraordinary event that's occurring, that somehow we are alienating people because of technology. The next slide is probably, for me, one of the most important ones. This is a 93-year-old engineer, Mr. Bede Island, who is my pin-up boy now. He has applied to the tribunal after applying to us to obtain information because he was bequeathed land in a will from his friend. And she wanted accommodation for single mothers to be built on that land. The council has denied the building on that land because they've decided that it's flood prone. He requested the engineer's specifications for how to measure ground zero, how to measure dot point X in the ground and then the floodplain from there. The council refused him access to that because they used an outsourced software for that calculation. So he has no right to challenge that case in relation to the building of accommodation for mothers who have been, and women who have been subject to domestic violence, because that calculation is not available. My final slide is just how to contact me. So that's, and please don't hesitate to contact me throughout, but I wanted to raise contemporary issues that alienate information access.
Thank you very much, Tid. I think these 4 instances will tease our thinking in our various commissions, that when we are also confronted with issues, we can refer to what is happening in other jurisdictions as a matter of a guide of persuasive effect, so that we can arrive at some of the best decisions to grow the information space. So we are all entreated to share some of our cases across nations, and that's going to help develop the experiences we are having as developing nations elsewhere. So thank you very much. We've taken note of your contacts. We'll do that accordingly. Advocate Strom, yes, I believe you're ready to take us through your slides.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, so let me reiterate the question. What are the pressing development issues faced by your jurisdiction, in which case I'm referring to South Africa? And how does access to information contribute in addressing these concerns?
Yes, thank you very much for that. The slide outlines some of the major challenges that we are facing as the regulator in as far as access to information is concerned, as well as how we are addressing those concerns. You'll recall that our access to information, or ATI law, or Freedom of Information, FOI law, as it's called in other jurisdictions, ours came into operation on the 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, but the challenge with this act was that it was with the South African Human Rights Commission. We took over this piece of legislation when it took office in 2016, but it became operational in 2021, June the 30th of June 2021. So it's fairly new in our office. So we do have, we're one of the few jurisdictions in Africa with a dual mandate. We deal with both access to information and privacy, which is Protection of Personal Information Act. We can go to the next slide. Yes, this for us emanates from Section 32 of our Constitution. Our view as the regulators that we encourage voluntary disclosure and automatic availability of certain records. So we encourage proactive disclosure of records. But in terms of development, I'm going to outline some of the challenges since we took this mandate that we have encountered. The first one, you'll see the next slide. It's our grounds of refusal. Remember I said we encourage proactive disclosure, but the Act does provide for grounds of refusal. So I've listed all the grounds of refusal. I mean, the first one is the protection of privacy of third party, who's the natural person. The one that is critical, that we have a recent constitutional judgment with our Apex Code, section 35, which relates to tax records. There's a non-disclosure, mandatory non-disclosure of, there was a mandatory non-disclosure of such records. I'll come to that. And obviously, the other one is protection of commercial information and confidential information of a third party. And the last four, you can go to the next slide. It's three, actually. It's protection of safety of individuals and police records, dockets, and proceedings of law, and all those privileged documents for legal proceedings. So now the one that is critical now, ever since we took the mandate, is section 35. You can go to the next slide. There is, in terms of our Access to Information Act, there was a mandatory non-disclosure of tax information. Now there was a court, a constitutional court judgment, Arena Holdings, it's one of the print media, together with one of the NGOs, Amabungani. They lodged an application against SARS and our former president, President Jacob Zuma. The issue there was the access to records of President Zuma's tax records. And the matter went on appeal because obviously it's a sensitive one. And what the Apex Court ruled out 3 weeks ago was that Section 35 and 46 of our Access to Information Act is not inconsistent with the Constitution. It's invalid, meaning Section 35 now should fall under 46, where now the disclosure of records is in the public interest. So, I mean, now it's very clear that it's one of the key issues. It's a drive. I mean, for an example, previously we didn't even ask for any tax records of an individual, but the Apex Court said no, even if he's the president, it's in the public interest that those tax records should be disclosed. And also they declared the Tax Administration Act, Section 69.2 and 67.4, to make reference to access to information, because it didn't make reference to that. Now the second one issue is the next slide. It's with regards to PAEA, our Access to Information, as far as our Privacy Act is concerned. The definition of information officer of a private body is the head of the private body in terms of our Privacy Act. Now, in 2019, our Access to Information Act was amended, and the definition of a private body now included a political party, meaning the definition of a head of a political party means a leader of a political party. Now, when you talk about an information officer of a private body, that definition includes the leader of a political party. So we did that in consultation with our electoral commission, and some amendments were made to our electoral act. And as far as this is concerned, the past 3 weeks we've been doing assessment on all the 13 political parties that are represented in Parliament in South Africa, to ensure that we educate that each and every political party, their head, has got responsibilities in terms of access to information and privacy. The next slide. Now, what is critical now it's what we encourage on our annual reporting to Parliament, to say now in terms of Section 83 of our Access to Information Act, private bodies may give us information, the regulator, about the request of access of that body. We encourage this because it gives us records to report to Parliament in terms of compliance with our act by private bodies. But in terms of Section 84, it's a mandatory reporting by that public body to us, and that information obviously goes together to Parliament on our annual reporting. Now, like I said, we have done to date assessment, I think will be done in 2 weeks, of political parties that are represented in Parliament. And we are still also encouraging compliance by both private and public bodies. But with our act, it's not like we are forcing, we're just saying our act says you assess, and then if there are any wrongdoing, encourage that culture of compliance with the act. And the challenges, the next slide, will be, we need to do a lot more education and in our awareness. I mean, our background in our country, there's a lot of vulnerable groups, women, disadvantaged communities and rural communities. We are trying by all means to go and reach out to those communities and educate them. But the challenge that we're having also is technological advancement and digital literacy. How do these people access the internet when they don't have the tools to enable to do so? So this is one of our major challenges going forward, and we'll make sure that we break through all these challenges. And I think the last one is done. Thank you.
So thank you very much. I believe most of our agencies here have a dual mandate as well as the South African situation. Our lady from Azerbaijan is heading a commission that has a dual mandate, I guess. Yes. There's always the challenge between what is a matter of privacy and what must be disclosed. But I believe that disclosure promotes more of democracy than us not disclosing. So we are all encouraged to be an agency that is pro-disclosure as against what we try to prevent the public from having. But with tax records, as I listened to your presentation, my country, Ghana, has a similar provision in the law that prevents the disclosure of tax records of third parties. I would love to read the decision of the highest court that encourages or puts the tax records of a public officer out there rather than just to put out the tax records of any individual at all. I'm sure a distinction would have been made in the act, in the decision of the highest court.
I do have the judgment. I'll give it to you.
Sure. That would be great. So if you can share it, I'm sure we can send an email to all participating members to appreciate what the South African court may have come up with. And then we'll be guided in our various jurisdictions. Yes, we move on to our next panelist. Yes. Do we have our translation services? Do we have it online? Okay. So, Bernardo Navarrete Yanes. Yes. I would like to know how citizen participation is being exercised and utilized in pursuit of improving the development outcomes in your country. Yes, you have the floor.
Bueno, mi primera palabra es si se está traduciendo en línea.
I'd just like to know if you are listening to me online. Are you okay? Can I be heard?
Okay. Parto entonces. Bien, tomaré las últimas palabras dichas a propósito de la educación para llegar a y cómo importa la transparencia hacia el desarrollo. Mientras hablaba mi español sin que pudiera ser traducido, recordaba que ninguna institución pública y ninguna institución en general nace transparente, ni los funcionarios públicos
Are there?
a dedicarle tiempo. ¿Estamos todavía con traducción simultánea? No.
El problema es que llega nuestra voz junto a la de usted. Hay un problema técnico y no queremos molestarle a usted. Pero si van al canal español, igual ahí no hay interrupción. Si pueden decirle, can you please go to the Spanish channel? There might be no interruption there. Imagine you're listening Spanish. I'll try it from there. So shift to Spanish channel, even if you want to listen to English.
Okay.
Channel 2 is coming across in English. Channel 2.
You can switch to channel 2 for English.
Continue?
Kindly continue.
Continue? Okay. Uno de los problemas centrales del desarrollo, y a propósito de la
recordar algunas cosas de actitudes de los ciudadanos. No es cierto que los ciudadanos están pidiendo información todos los días. Lo que nos demuestra, por ejemplo, en lo que cabe en economía, retail, a propósito de los problemas malditos. Para que ciertos problemas tengan solución requieren la voluntad de todos. Y en economía y la conducta se ha enfatizado fuertemente estos pequeños empujones, acicates, desde el gobierno hacia los ciudadanos para que cambien su conducta. Y uno de los cambios de conducta más importantes...
Inches.
Sorry, channel 3 for English.
Okay? Very complicated, eh?
It's complicated, isn't it?
Bueno,
Okay, here we go again.
economía. Okay. Economía de la conducta, gobierno conductual. Los gobiernos tienen que
The
tener
government
un rol
have to have a role
en hacer que los
into-
ciudadanos pidan información.
for the citizens to ask for
En la experiencia
information.
chilena, quienes más demandan información son
The people who have
estudiantes
more
de
demand,
profesores y empresas. Mayoritariamente empresas que se dedican a lucrar con datos del Estado y que por lo tanto es una paradoja que no hemos podido resolver, producto que tenemos dos posibilidades: o la información se entrega como está o se disponibiliza en función de lo que pide el usuario. Mi interés en recordar la economía de la conducta es que en alguna medida tanto Kahneman, Tversky o Thaler nos demuestran que en general nuestras conductas son más irracionales que racionales. Porque si fuéramos racionales y pidiéramos la información adecuada, no tendríamos los gobiernos que tenemos hoy día. Y eso que tenemos hoy día y que criticamos fuertemente requiere en alguna medida una acción desde parte de los organismos garantes, porque no es cierto que a mayor transparencia menos corrupción. Tendríamos muchos casos donde podríamos demostrar absolutamente lo contrario. Tal vez un buen ejemplo de lo que estoy diciendo es el trabajo que muchos de ustedes deben conocer del de Amartya Sen, que gana el Nobel en 1998. Él ilustró el rol de la información en el funcionamiento de los mercados porque investigó las hambrunas en Bangladesh y Etiopía y evidenció que las hambrunas ocurrieron en años en que el suministro de alimentos no fue significativamente menor a los años anteriores. El problema no fue la escasez de alimentos, sino la falta de información. En este sentido, la transparencia aumenta la eficiencia en la asignación de recursos y también puede contribuir a asegurar los beneficios del crecimiento económico, que los beneficios del crecimiento económico se distribuyen y es lo importante que no sean capturados por élite. Donde más se ha avanzado
when we have
en
advanced
la
more,
relación
is
transparencia y desarrollo en el presupuesto. Y en eso Blondal, Bisogno han planteado una hipótesis bastante validada de que la transparencia presupuestaria incide positivamente en el desarrollo humano y así sucesivamente. Entonces, a veces los números nos ayudan mucho porque finalmente, y es del caso como suele ocurrir, Kaufman demostraron en una correlación entre los países ricos existe con una alta transparencia donde claramente el impacto es positivo, particularmente en las empresas locales. A veces nosotros le pedimos a los ciudadanos que sean los campeones de la demanda por información y en la realidad eso no está ocurriendo. Estamos altamente concentrados en los grupos que demandan información específica como elementos de presión. Y lo otro, y con esto voy terminando, nos estamos quedando mucho en la participación como derecho, pero le prestamos poco atención a las instituciones que deben entregar la información. Como decía al principio, las instituciones no nacen transparentes. El esfuerzo de los burócratas por entregar la información infinita que pueden solicitar los ciudadanos no es menor. Hemos aportado al trabajo de transparencia por algoritmos, la mayoría de los países ha avanzado fuertemente en ello, pero algo está pasando que tenemos que empezar a prestarle atención y en serio, es a este tema: en qué medida nosotros apoyamos a los burócratas a disponibilizar información y a usar tecnología plenamente disponible. No es aceptable hoy día que estemos entregando información en papel teniendo una enorme capacidad para poder almacenar información. Entonces, si pusiéramos también, fuera a ponerle atención a la demanda de los ciudadanos y le pusiéramos atención a la cultura institucional de los organismos garantes de derechos, creo que haríamos una buena
una pareja adecuada. Pero curiosamente estudiamos poco a los que entregan la información y pareciera que sabemos menos de aquellos que la solicitan. Eso.
Yeah, thank you very much. I wish I could join the club, but I hardly could understand
Ojalá pudiera.
what was said because the interpretation service.
Parece que el servicio de interpretación está funcionando bien.
Yeah, Laura is smiling at me.
Laura ahora
She has the
sonríe
powers to
porque
summarize what
ella más o menos puede resumir lo que ha dicho Bernardo, pero si nos puede dar alguna idea de lo que dijo.
Yes, but can you give us a summary for the benefit of those of us who speak English? You should. Very well. If you provide what you gave us in writing, we will probably use our translation services to translate and appreciate what you shared with us. Very well. Thank you very much. Let me take advantage to introduce our rapporteur for this session, Malu Mangahas. Malu Mangahas. All right. Malu Mangahas is a convener, right to know now, or know now. Yes, coalition is in the Philippines. She's our rapporteur for this session. Thank you and welcome. We'll go on to Lamia Zenalova. Lamia Zelenova. She will be speaking through a Russian interpreter. Yes. Do we have the Russian interpreter available for us? Yes, you're set. Be sure we can understand you this time. Channel 4. Very well. So, let me ask, what are the effects of the lack of a functional and effective ATI mechanisms to the human rights, particularly the marginalized, vulnerable, and impoverished sectors of your society? Can you share with us?
Перевода нету. Алло, Лена. Not. Нету. Ага. Окей. Переведите вопрос, пожалуйста. No.
The translation.
Can she go here? Huh? Okay? Yes. Yes. Downstairs.
Yeah, come downstairs.
Hi, good afternoon. May we request for the Russian translator to just do a whispering translation here because the translation device is not working, so our delegates can understand. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so can she come down and assist our panelist so that she interprets after the speaking? I think for my microphone. Yeah, she can come for my microphone.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, she's gonna come down from the 4th floor.
While she comes down, let's move on to. Okay, she's down here.
Okay. Sit down. Переводить. Uh-huh. Can you again? Uh-huh.
Okay, so I was asking, what are the effects of the lack of a functional and effective ATI mechanism to the human rights, particularly the marginalized, vulnerable, and impoverished sectors of your society?
как влияет отсутствие эффективных механизмов работы в социальной деятельности на ваше население, в частности, на более маргинализованные слои общества?
Я хотела бы, чтобы поставили презентацию.
Is it possible to put the PowerPoint on?
Presentation. No?
Сейчас будет.
Уважаемые участники конференции, приветствую вас от имени омбудсмана Азербайджанской Республики Сабины Алиевой. И хочу отметить, что сегодняшнее мероприятие дает нам возможность обсудить эту очень важную тему, перенять передовые практики и внести коррективы в нашу деятельность.
Dear conference participants, on behalf of the Ombudsman of the Republic of Azerbaijan, Sabina Aliyeva, I greet all of you and would like to emphasize that this international event provides us with an opportunity to discuss this highly important topic, learn from the best practices, and make improvements in our activities related to freedom of access of information. I would like to briefly share with you the ongoing work in our country, including the efforts of the Ombudsman of the Azerbaijan in achieving SDGs and the field of protecting the right to access information.
Цели устойчивого развития ООН имеют мировое значение и являются руководящим документом для всех государств, в том числе и для Азербайджана. Объем работы по достижению ЦУР огромен и требует поддержки и сотрудничества всех заинтересованных сторон.
The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs for brevity, are of global significance and serve as a guiding document for all countries, including Azerbaijan. The scope of work towards achieving the SDGs is vast and requires the support and collaboration of all stakeholders. The government, private sector, and civil society must work together in this direction. I believe that the fact that our country is the first in the region and one of the 10 countries worldwide to present 3 voluntary national reviews at the UN high-level political forum demonstrates the importance attached to the commitments made under the SDGs.
Да. Не случайно пункт 16.10 ЦУР посвящен обеспечению права на информацию, и обеспечение права на доступ к информации является одним из основных принципов открытого общества и демократического правового государства. Наша страна стремительно интегрируется в мировое информационное пространство, проделана важная работа по более эффективному обеспечению свободы доступа к информации и подписаны президентом страны соответствующие распоряжения принятой национальной стратегии обеспечивают права на получение информации.
It is not coincidental that SDG target 16.10 is dedicated to ensuring the right to information. Ensuring the right to access information is one of the fundamental principles of an open society and a democratic legal state. Our country is rapidly integrating into the global information space, and important work has been done to enhance the effective provision of freedom of access to information. Measures have been taken to improve the system of regulatory framework. The relevant decrees signed by the President of the country and national strategies and actions implemented contribute to a more effective realization of the right to obtain information. Ламия, в целях экономии времени, если ваша речь записана на бумаге, может быть, переводчик будет ее читать, чтобы
Да,
сэкономить время.
можно, но я хотела бы, чтобы презентацию показали.
Yes, but she would like to show us the PowerPoint, which is with the host. У них какие-то проблемы с презентацией.
У меня флешка на флешке есть, если можно.
She has her own flash drive, if that will help. Давайте флешку.
Вы уже сами смотрите, говорите, пусть они нам сделают. Да, иди туда, чтобы я тебя видела.
Rights of access to information. According to Article 50 of the Constitution of the Republic of Azerbaijan, everyone has the right to freely seek, receive, transmit, prepare, and disseminate information by lawful means. Next, please. And next. There. On September 30, 2005, the law of the Republic of Azerbaijan on access to information was adopted. According to Article 2 of this law, everyone has the right to directly address the information holder or their representative, choose the type of information and the form of its receipt. Next, please. Next, please. Can we go back one slide, please? There. In accordance with Article 1.3 of the Constitutional Law of the Republic of Azerbaijan on the Commissioner of Human Rights, the Commissioner oversees the compliance of information holding state bodies, municipalities, and state officials with the obligations arising from the law of the Republic of Azerbaijan on access to information. The information holder is obliged, in accordance with the prescribed legal procedure, to ensure the right of everyone to free, unimpeded, and equal access to information from their information resources. Next, please. Here is how the work is organized and the ways to contact the Ombudsman. Next, please. However, there are cases when the information owner blatantly violates the law by not providing the requested information within the time frame stipulated by legislation, refuses to provide it altogether, or provides incomplete information. In cases of non-disclosure of information or non-compliance with the requirements under Articles 371 to 374, 382, and 554 of the Code of the Republic of Azerbaijan on Administrative Offences, protocols of administrative offences are drawn up by the Human Rights Commissioner and by her Chief of Staff or the Deputy Chief of Staff at the instruction of the Ombudsman. In such cases, a decision is made to initiate administrative offense proceedings, and protocols on administrative offenses are prepared and forwarded to district courts for review. In accordance with the Code of Administrative Offences of the Republic of Azerbaijan, information owners who violate the legislation on the right to access information may be fined ranging from 500 to 700 manats for officials and from 1,500 to 2,500 manats for legal entities. Due to the unlawful territorial claims made by Armenia against Azerbaijan over many years, more than 20% of Azerbaijani territories have been under Armenian occupation for nearly 30 years. As a result of the Armenian occupation, a humanitarian crisis has emerged in Azerbaijan, with over 1 million Azerbaijanis becoming internally displaced persons and refugees losing their homes. Despite our attempts to resolve the issue peacefully and persuade Armenia to comply with the United Nations Security Council resolutions, which demanded the immediate, complete, and unconditional withdrawal of Armenian forces from Azerbaijani territories, Armenia ignored these resolutions, demonstrating disrespect for international law and the international community. Unfortunately, peaceful negotiations did not yield any results, and in 2020, exercising our right to self-defense, we liberated our territories by force. For almost 2.5 years now, we have been recovering a vast territory of 10,000 square kilometers, which was completely devastated, and this is our main concern in the near future. By the way, numerous representatives of international delegations have witnessed the destructions in the liberated territories. It is indeed herbicide.
Check channel 3. Check channel 3.
Landmine problem in the liberated territories. This process that are being implemented in parallel with the return of our citizens to their ancestral lands. Currently, the main obstacle to return process and normalization of life is the mine problem. The extensive mine contamination of Azerbaijani territories during the occupation period by Armenia's armed forces and illegal armed groups poses a serious obstacle to achieving a durable and just peace in the region. As a result of the non-delivery of accurate mine maps to our country, numerous civilians have fallen victim to landmines. Since the liberation of the occupied territories from November 10, 2020 until the present day, 54 people have lost their lives and 244 people have sustained various injuries due to mine explosions. In total, from 1991 to the present day, 3,365 people have been killed or injured as the result of mine incidents, including 38 women and 357 children. This is why clarity on information is a matter of life and death.
Okay. If you can save us the history and focus on the right to information matters, it will help us to save some time and move on to.
And here is the list of the current activities of the Ombudsman of the Republic of Azerbaijan. We call for the acceleration of demining actions in the liberated territories of Azerbaijan. We see a connection between SDGs and mine clearance. The existence of unexploded ordnance in these areas hinders the sustainable return of displaced persons and the normalization of their lives. Despite the appeals and numerous statements by the Azerbaijani ombudsman to Armenia and international organizations regarding these issues, the acts of mine terrorism and ecocide have been continued so far, and there is a lack of information about locations of mass graves of the deceased. Unfortunately, international institutions remain silent on this matter. Dear participants, we hope that through continuous and fruitful cooperation and the fair position of international organizations, stability, security, and economic development can be achieved in the South Caucasus region. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. I believe Azerbaijan is making a call to the rest of the world and all of us here present that they have some internal matters that if we are not careful will override right to information issues, and therefore every voice is required to help them solve their national problems. So it's a call to us all to use every effort through our governments to support their situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Our last panelist on this, we didn't have the opportunity to do some questioning. Our panelist from Nepal, would you require an interpreter as well, or you do us the honors of speaking English?
If needed, I will do myself.
Okay, sure. All
I
right.
don't think anybody needed, but who knows?
Sure.
My presentation, please. Can I have? Okay, good. Next one. No, not this one. Oh, yes, please. That was for another moment. Yes, thank you very much. I very much appreciate it. Okay, I think I will go with a couple of examples, then I will explain what are our issues. And then since we are in ICIC meeting, I will put some global concerns, I think, well, what we should do. So this is one area, this is a tourist and religious site where a lot of investment was done by the government, and then information seeker sought the information from this agency which is not provided, and then National Information Commission of Nepal has to order to provide the information. Once the information was provided, it was found that there were a number of parallel budgets allocated for the same infrastructure. Projects were not completed for many years. Misuse of funds were there. And then there is investigation on misuse and corruption is going on at the moment. Next one, please. There was another example of municipality. Information seeker sought the information from municipality about the allocation of budget and the programs. The municipality did not provide the information, then they came to us, and then National Information Commission again has to order that municipality to provide the information. And when they provided the information, it was found that the executive director of that municipality had distributed budget and programs without authorization of the municipality board. That was found, and then all the programs and budget allocation was cancelled. That means how much our citizens need the right to information, to get the information from those agencies to find out how their taxes are being utilized. Next one, please. This is the one example where National Information Commission has ordered all the public bodies to put up the information board wherever there is a new project, so that people affected or related to this project will know about what is happening in their area, so that they can ask the questions or they can seek the information regarding that project. These are the three examples I gave, and then this is the what I believe is development is a process where every citizen has to be able to seek the information or ask our public bodies or our bureaucrats, politicians, whoever is there. They have to know what is happening in there. This is only theoretical part, and then of course what I believe is in the recent years there has been threats to democracy, in particular people's rights. Fundamental rights of the people are threatened in recent years. That means we all have to be aware of those threats, and we have to make some kind of common agenda of that. The next one, please. The final one. What we should do then? If we see that access to information or right to information is such an important component of our life, then what we should do then, since we are in ICIC meeting, we should have a common kind of understanding on that. So the few recommendations what I would like to make is common voice for effective implementation of RTI in each and every country, which will empower the people. Another one, RTI legislation standards. We have scattered standards everywhere, but not a single global standard. That means ICIC should develop one legislation standard with the support of UNESCO, since UNESCO is the one which is looking after these issues in UN. And another one which I believe is very important is right to information, which is the major pillars of the democracy. We know that it empowers people, it empowers citizens. That means we also be concerned. That means right to information should be the prioritized subject for discussion to democracy advocates, whatever it is, whether democracy summit or whatever it is. And another important is 1610.2, Sustainable Development Goal Indicator. 1610.2 should be given enough attention. And another one is information commissions. Like today we spoke about strong institutional bodies. And the major hindrance is financial independence to the information commissions, which should be there. Otherwise, the executive will always control the information commissions. And another one, which I believe is United Nations Human Rights Council, which is Article 19 it has, and then of course United Nations Convention Against Corruption should make RTI as one of the major agenda in its meetings. Otherwise, it won't get that much of attention from others. And UN and development partners should emphasize on effective implementation of RTI by governments, because a lot of governments doesn't want RTI because they don't want to disclose their information. That means we have to force them to implement this kind of things. And another one is ICIC and regional networks should promote sharing best practices of RTI, regional as well as ICIC, which we are doing today anyway. And last but very important one is we have seen that it is the civil society and media which has been promoting, which has been advocating, which has been making it possible, the RTI or access to information possible. That means ICIC, I know that it has number of times ICIC has recognized it, but for myself, I want to again emphasize on ICIC should recognize the role played by civil society and media.
Thank you very much.
Did that answer your whatever you asked?
Yes, thank you very much. I think that we have taken so much time. I would have gone round with some follow-up questions, but I think we can sum it up by looking at what we have been able to see from all jurisdictions and all organizations here present. there's an encouragement for us to look at vulnerable groups, especially women and children, and underprivileged in societies, maybe the disabled. How are we able to get them on board in this access to information drive? I think as we go back, we all should refocus our attention on how to do this. I think we also got from this whole session of experience sharing and the difficulties that some of our organizations have in their jurisdictions. So those with positive experiences, be minded to share with fellow ICIC members. Those with problems, let the ICIC provide a platform, a voice, an advocacy for member institutions and member countries to be able to drive access to information matters in their jurisdictions. There are also very good experiences that we can pick from decisions that have been made in other jurisdictions, and I encourage us all to reach out to agencies beyond our jurisdiction, use their cases as reference points when you are challenged in similar circumstances to get the best decisions for the growing of access to information laws. It's also become important that we cannot relent on our drive to educate the people of our societies. Let's all put in more effort to educate our societies, to appreciate access to information laws, and to exercise the right of access to information in everywhere that we find ourselves. It has become obvious that it exposes more of corruption in politics when we encourage the use of access to information laws. And the corruption will be cut down and therefore help develop societies rather than develop individuals if we promote access to information. My final point on what we have done so far is that ICIC should be heard stronger, should be heard stronger beyond an annual ICIC conference. There should be a clear plan by the ICIC to advocate for its member groups, where countries like Azerbaijan are having challenges. We must have a voice. We should be ready to issue statements to support challenged institutions. I believe Mexico, for instance, has a challenge of its membership. What is the ICIC saying? Why are we looking on to just have them experience what they are experiencing and rendering them redundant? I think that we need to have a voice that is more courageous than what we sit to do annually. Yes, on that note, I say thank you very much, all panelists, for participating in this. We'll hand over to the next. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to all of our panelists, and thank you for being patient with the technical difficulty. It's crazy, we know. Now, just to fix everything before we proceed to our second session, maybe a request for a 10-minute break, just to ensure that all of the technical difficulties will be resolved. You may proceed towards the diplomatic lounge. Thank you very much, and see you in 10 minutes.